Obviously, as you've heard this week, the ex-CEO Linda Yaccarino stepped down from X, and Elon Musk kind of gave her a cold shoulder reply. I think all he said was "Thanks for your hard work." I'll go ahead and pull up the tweet here in just a second, but it was a cold reply nonetheless. I think it was like a 7-word reply, and from a departing CEO that he had worked so hard to turn around a company with, it was a little bit of a cold response. I want to go ahead and dive into exactly what I think happened, why she stepped down or was fired. We don't exactly know 100% yet, and as well as some interesting avenues that X could be taking as we speak. Let's go ahead and dive into the video. So what I wanted to talk about here was this graph about X's ad revenue business. So obviously X's main revenue came from advertisers, and with Elon taking over, advertisers stepped out, and that's why you saw this giant plunge here when Elon took over in advertising revenue. Absolutely fell. Elon fought. I don't know exactly when he hired the CEO, but that's when everything started to change. And obviously, the trajectory of this wasn't going in the best place. They turned it around, but it wasn't exactly the world's biggest mover. So the Wall Street Journal did a piece that I want to talk to you guys about. So Linda Yaccarino's main objective was to just wine and dine top advertisers, and she was trying to bring eyeballs to X. So she was working on just bringing as many eyeballs as she can. Serena Williams was going to do a podcast set to debut on X this summer. Is that still going to happen? I don't know. But behind the confident presentations was an executive who had navigated a turbulent 2 years as chief executive of Elon Musk's X, which would probably be one of the hardest jobs. Don't envy it. As much as she tried to get advertisers, Musk would continue. It said more recently, the platform faced self-inflicted content moderation problems from XAI's Grok chatbot. Obviously, a few nights ago, the chatbot Grok was saying some very racist things. Nobody really knows what happened 100% yet. It was the eve of Grok 4 release, and I don't know if they were testing things or what happened, but out of nowhere, the CEO of X stepped down. On Wednesday, she posted that she was stepping down. And Yaccarino told people close to her that the recent return of some advertisers and the merger, which made X a smaller revenue contributor, made it a good time to depart. Current and former employees say her position at the company appeared increasingly tenuous after clashes with management. Obviously, she's more the advertiser of the corporate, and it'll get into this a little bit. And I'll go ahead and summarize. Her tenure was marred with her boss's erratic behavior, which often made it harder to bring back the very advertising customers she was hired to woo. She was effectively demoted in X's merger with XAI. So XAI merged, and she was still fighting for advertisers, but Elon was getting into politics, and it made it very difficult. So something that let's keep reading into it. It's unclear who might succeed Yaccarino if X decides to replace her. Contenders could include members of Yaccarino's leadership team, such as John Nitty, global head of revenue operations and ad innovation at X, other people. But I have a different idea. So they kind of gets back into her role previously. Her primary task was to lure back marketers who paused spending because they feared Musk would weaken content moderation. She also smoothed out a payment issue with Google, hired a new slate of senior executives, and pushed X to create more tools that led brands to control the types of content that appear next to their ads. Obviously, when it comes to advertising, it's really nice to be able to say, hey, I want to advertise on this video. I don't want to advertise on that video. I want to advertise with this keyword. I don't want to advertise with that keyword. So it looks like that Linda was insightful when it came to that. Musk and Yaccarino's styles were sometimes at odds. The billionaire preferred his team to communicate with quick bullet-pointed emails or signal messages and would get frustrated at Yaccarino's polished presentations and emails. So you have much more of like a startup run-and-gun CEO versus a very seasoned corporate executive that's like, I want formal emails, let's do PowerPoints, things like that. Was probably frustrating to Musk, and hence the cold dismissal when she stepped down. He had a few times undermined her efforts at a conference in 2023. Musk declared that advertisers pulling their ads from X could go explicit yourself. Obviously, if your job is to bring advertisers onto a platform, for Musk to go on stage and do that would be pretty upsetting. She and Musk schmoozed with advertising bigwigs on a yacht along the French Riviera the next year in an effort to better relations with them, according to people familiar with the situation. When X hired the chief of finance, they butted heads. Okay, let's keep going. He was supported by Musk, and effectively replaced Yaccarino's previously appointed head of finance for the company. So it sounds like Musk started to take autonomy from Linda. Musk put pressure on Yaccarino last year to turn around the advertising business faster, according to people familiar with the situation. Advertisers began to return late last year, but Musk wanted faster progress. He told the staff in January that he didn't think the company was on solid financial ground. Our user growth is stagnant, revenue is unimpressive, and we're barely breaking even, he said in an email to employees. Stabilizing X's finances were crucial to the recent merger of X and XAI after a series of fundraising transactions during the winter's X value had recovered from an estimated 10 billion to about 44 billion, just north of how much Elon Musk had bought Twitter for in 2022. So over 22 years, X's value dropped from 10 billion to about 44 billion. The new valuation, I don't even know how to say it, buttressed by the improvement in ad revenue, signaled that X's original investors hadn't lost money and they had put in alongside Musk. So it was a win for Musk's investors to break even. It wasn't like a massive win, but it wasn't a massive loss, I should say. I do think some banks sold their debt for a little bit less, but that's fine. Less than a month later, X said that it was merging with XAI. The deal moved with the company closer to Musk's goal of turning X into the everything app where people can share news, pay bills, and entertain themselves. Obviously, we haven't seen too much of this, so I wonder if that has to do with her departure, the fact that they didn't see too much of this progress in the everything app. After the deal, Yaccarino's presence in front of investors started to diminish. She wasn't a part of XAI's recent bout of fundraising led by Morgan Stanley, and XAI executives instead presented the company's growth plans to investors. A person familiar with the matter said. So it sounds like she just kind of got pushed out, which is honestly kind of a bummer because I think she was really valuable. Elon has often asked strong women leadership to lead some of his companies. Like I know some of the board of directors at Tesla are women. Glenn Shotwell is the COO of SpaceX, and she's done a phenomenal job. And so he tried to continue the pattern with the CEO of X, but it sounds like she just kind of got pushed out by XAI. Basically, what I think Elon is trying to do is he's frustrated with advertisers and having to wine and dine. I think he doesn't want to send people to do that and have to, because he's giving up some freedom to kind of get what advertisers want. What I think he's going to try to turn X into is, as long as the ad revenue is stable enough, I think that's fine. But I think what the main revenue driver for X is going to be the AI. I think he's going to want XAI to be competitors with OpenAI. Obviously, XAI is still losing a ton of money. But in the grand scheme of things, I think that he's looking for XAI to merge with Tesla in an acquisition to really raise X's valuation. That's my take. Something kind of funny. I kind of say this tongue in cheek, but it is what it is. I think that it would be funny if Mr. Beast did have some sort of influence. If he was hired as kind of like a meme CEO, where he's like, I'm not going to deal with advertisers. I just want to focus on the video platform. And he can really bring more eyeballs to X and more creators to X by motivating them to post and helping with their creator platform. So I think that the XAI, I think Mr. Beast being the executive, he shouldn't have to deal with like HR or stuff like that, or like be in the corporate office. But I do think if he was brought in as kind of like the head of video product, or if people were to spend more time on X and have a more pleasant video experience where creators can feel more comfortable posting long form content, I really think that's fizzled out. And I think Mr. Beast could add a lot of insight to that. And I think he could kind of turn X into a really cool video platform. So that's just kind of more of like a funny tongue-in-cheek tidbit that he quote tweeted himself. He said, "Can I be the new Twitter CEO?" I think Elon even replied, "Sure." He said, "It's not out of the question." That's in 2022. And he said, "So is now my time." And I think he even brings it up one more time. I'll fill the role. Sorry. He said, "I'll fill the role." Now, what this would be really cool is if he brought back Twitter, or he brought back like Vine and made it a creator first platform and made it compete with, I think TikTok's making its own United States based version of TikTok. If he competed with that, I think that could be huge, not only for X, it could be big for XAI, more data, more users. And I think you could bring in, like, the generation of X is older, but I think if you brought back Vine, you could really get that younger generation back in and just create a US based short form content competitor to TikTok. And I think there's nobody better to do that than Mr. Beast. So I know it's kind of funny. I know it's kind of a meme, but I think he could actually make a big difference in X's video content. So that's my take. I know we kind of read through the Wall Street Journal ad. I think she was just pushed out, didn't feel valued, stepped down. And I don't know where she's going to get a job. But I think the advertising revenue growth is telling for what happened to Linda at X. If you guys enjoyed, consider subscribing. But thanks for watching.